This is central London, where 4 out of 10 people are foreign nationals, but the population lives in relative peace. Meanwhile, 5,500 miles away, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Aung San Suu Kyi, is accused of overseeing the world's fastest growing refugee crisis. She's led Myanmar as hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims have fled to neighbouring Bangladesh, risking death by sea or on foot. They've been escaping persecution since August 2017. Yet her government sees the Rohingya as illegal immigrants and denies them citizenship.
The United Nations has warned that the mid-year monsoons will create flooding and mudslides that will add to the suffering. The World Health Organization is working hard to vaccinate as many refugees as it can against killer diseases. But cases of highly contagious disease continue to increase. It's hardly surprising, considering the appalling conditions adults and children are living in, where shelters are built above seas of rubbish and excrement. Ms. Suu Kyi, the Nobel Peace Prize winner who lived under house arrest for many years for her pro-democracy activism, is facing allegations that she has failed to speak out over violence against the Rohingyas. That violence includes mobs burning their villages and attacking civilians, violence justified by Myanmar's military as a fight against militants. Yet the Rohingya have lived in Myanmar for generations, but are denied citizenship by both Myanmar and Bangladesh. The UN says it is unsafe for the Rohingya refugees to begin returning home to Myanmar, and that issues related to their safety need to be addressed first.
Was it right for the UK to suspend its military aid to Myanmar's army? And if Myanmar were rich in oil, would the world have reacted differently? Simple questions with important answers. Let's start with this. What, if anything, does the public here in Britain know about the persecution of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar? Here's what we found out.
No, not even heard an inch about it.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
I heard recently, but not for a while.
And what have you heard about it?
The plight of them, the people basically, and what they're having to go through on a daily basis.
Yes, I have actually, yeah.
What have you heard about it?
Just that it is happening. I think some celebrities over here have been talking about it quite a lot as well, but I don't know much about it at all. I've just heard about it a bit.
Nothing at all. Don't even know what we're talking about.
Of course I know very well, because they are persecuted by the Burmese government under the leadership of Aung San Suu Kyi, one of the most outrageous, and by the name of Nobel Prize. It is, I think, particularly she is, I don't know what sort of power she got, but her militaries are persecuted. It is one of the inhuman treatment they are doing with the Rohingyas.
Very superficial knowledge, unfortunately, but it just seems absolutely appalling, and it's obvious what it is, ethnic cleansing.
Oh, just know that it's a very unfair situation, and I'm not for it at all. It's terrible.
I know very little. I have heard about it on the radio. That's all I know about it.
Yeah, what I know about it is what I have heard from the media about almost like genocidal proportion of killings and extradition of Muslims in the region. So I don't know anything more about it except what I hear from the media and the general condemnation of it.
Okay, so the Rohingya Muslims have been persecuted for the best part of almost 6 decades. The persecution started in the 1960s when one of the generals took over Burma, and as a result they decided that they wanted to have this one Burma with one ethnicity and with one religion of Buddhism. And anything that was outside of that realm was not wanted. And the Rohingya, unfortunately, being Muslim as well, were pushed to the sidelines at that time. It's really important to also understand how the international community perceives this issue. So the UN has previously described this, the Rohingya community, as the most persecuted community in the world. That's including many other household kind of catastrophes and atrocities that we're well versed with. But on the scale of how bad the Rohingya issue is. Like I said, it's been going on for almost 6 decades, and countless times it's proven to be, problematic, and many thousands of lives have been lost as a result.
Extremely unfortunate that I know about what's happening in Myanmar, in terms of that it's happening at all, not about the knowledge of it. As far as knowledge of it is concerned, what concerns me is when it all kicked off hugely in the public domain, about 6 months or so ago, there's a massive campaign internationally, an outcry of what is going on in Myanmar. How can this genocide be taking place in 2018 of all times? But what disappoints me in terms of knowledge is what's happened since. If you now go to social media, or if you now switch on your TV, there's no information about it. You'd be forgiven for thinking that the problem has gone away. It hasn't gone away. In actual fact, it's actually got worse. And the reason it's got worse because the spotlight isn't on there anymore. And this is what's needed. We need to put the spotlight back on and see what is now happening in Myanmar and how bad is it now.
Aung San Suu Kyi is a Nobel Peace Prize winner and currently the Prime Minister of Myanmar. Why, in the public's view, hasn't she actively attempted to stop the violence?
Seems a bit backward. How has she won a Peace Prize if she's not using a position to promote peace? I don't know. I'd have to know more about the subject, but yeah, doesn't sound great.
I'd personally agree with that. From the actual film I saw about her and her husband a fair while ago now, and she's totally changed in character from what she portrayed in the film. I thought she'd do a lot more than she actually has done. Maybe it's a case that maybe she can't do any more than she's actually done. I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite sad. Like I say, yeah, that someone could be recognised for being a peaceful person and then do something like that. It's quite scary, yeah.
And yeah, it's horrible. I just can't even think about it, how human being can do something like that to someone else, literally. So yeah, I'm disgusting about, basically.
She don't have any power. She's only a ceremonial, holding a post as a ceremonial head of the state, and army is making all this. If it is that case, I think she should resign. And if it is not the case, of course, with her consent, with her full knowledge, this persecution going on. And it is a disaster not only for her, but for the Nobel Committee, those who awarded Nobel Peace Prize to her.
I'm sure she feels her hands are tired. It's just a shame that somebody that's got a Peace Prize should do so little for so many. It's just appalling, really.
I believe most politicians are much more interested in their own lives than the lives of other people. And so as long as she doesn't need to interfere, she'll avoid it.
Aung San Suu Kyi is the de facto president of Burma, but it's really important to understand the way that Burma is kind of set up as a constitution, as a country. Most of the power is held by the military and the generals of that military, and only 25% of the power actually is given to a civilian government, and it's the civilian government that Aung San Suu Kyi is chief of. It's also really important to understand that inside Burma, the Rohingya issue is really a non-issue. In the sense that there is wide public support for their, the condemnation of the Rohingya people. There is no support for the Rohingya people inside Burma. The fact that she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner is something which is an international accolade. But it's not the international community which decides to vote in Aung San Suu Kyi, it's the people of Burma. And unless the people of Burma decide or voice their opinion that the Rohingya massacre is that, I don't think anything is going to change so far as Suu Kyi is concerned.
Actions always speak louder than words. We always see politicians saying that they're going to do the right thing, that they stand for justice, stand for humanity, stand for the rule of law. And when you award a Nobel Peace Prize to somebody, it's an international recognition that this person stands for peace, stands for justice. And so the president of Myanmar can say all she wants, but her conduct speaks the loudest. The fact that she's not doing anything about it, the fact that she's allowing these atrocities to take place, makes her not only complicit in it, but also leading on it, because she's a leader of the country. How can she, with any good conscience, allow innocent women and children and men, vulnerable people with no homes, to end up in a situation where they are literally being murdered, raped, looted, and just cleaned out completely. A genocide. There's no other word to explain it.
The UK trained and supplied Myanmar's army with weapons, which were then used in violence against the Rohingya Muslims. Does the public here in Britain feel it was right for the UK to suspend its military aid due to that violence, and why?
Well, yeah, we shouldn't support things that are corrupting other countries. Yeah, we shouldn't support people that are causing conflict.
Yes, I do.
Why is that?
Because basically the weapons that they were actually using would probably hurt more people in the long run than the ones that they wouldn't use.
I would say yes, it's right, but if they've completely stepped away from it and left them to their own devices, then it's probably not too sensible to do that. There should be some kind of education, as well. So I'm on the fence with that, really.
It's so hard to even answer something like that because I'm going to be honest, I'm not very into this political games and stuff like that. I think, yeah, definitely if we can do something about it to stop, yes, why not? But I don't know if we can we?
It is completely, when it is come to our knowledge, we feel this is a betrayal of the UK's democracy. The government should definitely, immediately suspend all this dealing with this atrocious regime and invite for negotiated solution. Completely, UK can mediate if they have a leverage on the government.
UK can decide for itself what it wants to do with this international aids and international engagements. It's not for anybody to dictate what, because engaging with people is always more productive than disengaging.
Well, I think as soon as you come to the arms supply to the rest of the world, we can't hold ourselves up as anything but profiteering. Unfortunately, the profits never reach the people like us, so how can it be in our interest? But believe it or not, we go to wars over even less. But no, supplying of arms to people worldwide is absolutely abominable. But we do it as a matter of course because apparently it makes a profit for somebody.
I don't think it should be suspended. I think it should be permanently disabled.
So the British government has stopped their military kind of assistance to the Burmese military, and that's a fantastic move from the British government because I think when there are wide-scale reports of a genocide taking place, there's no way that we can, as a country, legitimately support a country which is persecuting its people. Problematically, however, there are other countries of the world who are still continue to maintain those kind of trades of arms and ammunitions. Countries like Israel, countries like China, countries like Russia and Ukraine, even India are continuously and constantly selling arms to Burma. Particularly problematic is the fact that Israel's actually training the very soldiers inside Rakhine State that are causing this genocide on the Rohingya people. So while it's a fantastic move that the British government has moved away from there and they've been championing the Rohingya through the UN Security Council, unfortunately there are other players that are still kind of actively pursuing the Burmese military regime.
If the UK truly wants to stand on an international platform and say we are against injustice, against racism, against apartheid, against genocide, then for goodness sake, stop selling arms to these people. How can the UK on one hand say that we are always in the right and the axis of evil is on the other side, yet you are the ones who are supplying arms to countries like this to be used on innocent civilians in the way it is? At the very least, pause, suspend your trade of arms, question what is going on, put something on them, some kind of embargo, some kind of pressure to stop what is going on and question them. Simply because there's nothing of interest there to you as as a country, as an entity. That shouldn't be a reason enough for not doing what you should be. This is a humanitarian cause and humanitarian crisis, and the value of life should always supersede the value of money and trade.
The United Nations says over 100,000 Rohingya Muslims in Bangladeshi refugee camps are in grave danger due to the monsoons. Over 500,000 Rohingyas have been vaccinated against diphtheria, but the disease continues to spread. Over 600,000 fled Myanmar since August 2017. Overall, more than 900,000 Rohingya refugees are sheltered in Cox's Bazaar, near the Bangladeshi border.
If Myanmar were rich in oil and resources, does the public think an intervention by the international community or the United Nations would have been quicker and more efficient?
More than likely, yeah. It's capitalism, isn't it?
Do you think our interventions are affected by self-interest in that way?
Probably, yeah. The place is run by the rich, for the rich, so...
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Why do you feel that?
Because that's what we seem to do in this country. We welcome people with oil, with open arms, and with other things we don't.
Yeah, I could almost guarantee that's the reason why, yeah, as sad as it is, yeah.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, if there's some fruitful resources, that might be a reason for that.
But definitely, if we can stop any bad behavior or anything goes bad to us as a human being, then yeah, definitely.
But this is something really, it is an irony for the international community, it is an irony for the democracy, it is an irony for human rights, and it is an irony for the whole international community. This is in the eyes of international community, such atrocious genocide going on, and no one is exerting their influence.
I think oil and gas does influence a lot of political goodwill from the international community. I strongly believe that the problem in the region is a very long-term problem, that we cannot reduce it to one thing.
How can you force another country to stop doing what they're doing? Well, I suppose you send in an international force. That's not really going to be very popular, but if they had more resources, absolutely.
Well, just given what's going on in the rest of the world, probably yes. I think so.
Well, of course it would. I mean, there's no doubt, because that's what people are interested in, their finance rather than the people. And if they were interested in the people, they would have stopped this a long time ago.
It's a common fallacy that Myanmar is not rich in oil resources and the like. It's actually, so far as an Asian country is concerned, it should be the richest Asian country because of the resources it has. All these years, Burma has been a pariah nation, i.e. there's been no international trading with Burma. But over the last sort of decade or so, especially in the last 5 years, Burma's opening up. It's opening up to international trade. And what that means is that its resources are up for sale. The fact that the international community and the UN Security Council is not talking is because of countries like China, who are invested heavily inside of Burma right now to extract those resources. If there wasn't those resources, countries like China and Russia probably wouldn't veto the UN Security Council resolutions or calls for resolutions. So while those things are at play, countries like India, Russia and China will continue to have vested interests inside Burma.
It's extremely unfortunate that internationally we are seeing a pattern. That wherever there are valuable resources such as oil or gas or anything else, we suddenly see a mobilization by our country, the UK, and other Western countries. And yet where there is a location where there's no such interest to be gained or benefit to be gained, there's either no action or a very delayed action of a limited kind. And that really is disgraceful and upsetting, because what that shows then is that the action that is taking place is not for the benefit of humankind and humanity and justice. It is truly about money and nothing else. So if you're going to pay the price and reward us for our efforts, we'll come and help you. If you've got nothing to give to us, we may think about helping you in some way if we feel like it.
What can the international community do to help the Rohingya Muslims and to end the violence against them? Here's the public's advice.
As much as they possibly could do with aid and help, basically. If you can't help people, then you're not going to help anyone, are you?
Well, they clearly need some help and some aid sent that way, and I think obviously people need to be made aware of it, because I do listen to quite a lot of news and I know barely anything about it. So yeah, it's educating people about the situation there, I think, and helping get some money their way is the first thing that needs to be done. Yeah, it's scary.
It really depends, because at the moment I think some countries having problems with the refugees, but some countries are welcoming the refugees. I think it really depends on the situations of each country.
Absolutely 100%. As a human again being, if we can save someone's life, then 100% yes, any life.
International community got the leverage. If they have a will, if there is a will, there is of course a way for the international community. Therefore, international community ignoring, I think deliberately, they should come forward. They should be proactive and do something in order to save not only Rohingya, save the humanity in 21st century global village.
Talk to people, put forward their own point of view, listen to their own point of view. People have, whatever action people take is for a reason.
Just not look away. Just keep looking at it, and fingers crossed.
It's very difficult because without actually going there, it's very difficult to do anything. But what they should be doing, they should be making it clear to the government that if it continues, there will be no benefits to them and their country from their own country. Every country in the world should be saying that to them, and it would stop.
So right now what's really, really important is that the international community uses the right terminology. Yeah? This is a genocide. And until governments start using the term genocide, we won't see the next steps. The reason for that is because genocide is a legal term, it has legal implications. Once we recognize this is genocide, the international community by law has to act. Until this moment, we've been referring to it as an ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing doesn't carry the same legalities, which means no action is needed. We can just continue to claim it's ethnic cleansing. It's very important that we continue our pushing and pressuring on international governments to call it what it is, a genocide. Once that happens, then we can start using things like the International Criminal Court. We can make referrals for the military leader Min Aung Hlaing. At the same time, we can also start calling it things like crimes against humanity, which is exactly what it is. I mean, just this week we found mass graves where 400 bodies are laying. Unless we do something internationally, those people have lost their lives, A, for no reason, and B, there's no justice served whatsoever. So the international community absolutely must do something, and must do it urgently.
Where establishments fail to act, this is where it is a matter for the people on the ground to act and to rise up and speak and become vocal. This is where the international community of people, of humans, not governments. Yes, if governments will assist, we would like that. But where they are not listening, they have to listen to their people. And this is where the power rests. The power truly does rest with the international community of ordinary people. If you all rise up together and make noise and come together and demand from individual communities, from the individual governments that they act, then hopefully something can happen. At the moment, the problem we have is not even aid anymore. We know of huge aid organizations that are down there, but they're not being allowed in to the areas which need help. Pressure needs to be put on the governments of Bangladesh and Myanmar, because we've got issues on both fronts of the way these people are being treated.
The Rohingya have lived in Myanmar for generations, but are denied citizenship and branded illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. At the same time, Bangladesh refuses to grant them citizenship too. And so they live in a no man's land, unable to trust either side and dependent on foreign aid and protection in the face of violence and disease.
Foreign powers have expressed concern, but there is no really united effort to defend this massive displaced community. Persecuted by two countries and accepted by neither, almost 1 million Rohingya Muslims face storms, starvation, violence and disease, and nowhere to live. As Myanmar's military forces are accused of the makings of genocide, their leader Aung San Suu Kyi watches on, a leader who, in the ultimate of ironies, has overseen this deadly violence after having earned a Nobel Prize for Peace.